Hello everyone, today we are from Group A to T. We would like to present Experiment 8, Batch Liquid Reactor. Before that, I would like to introduce my group mate. Here, Nick, Penny, Sarvish, and Shakti. And I, Hasmira Vidyashim. Thank you. I'm Hasmira Vidyashim. Today, I would like to talk about three things: introduction, objective, and theory of this experiment. The first one, let's take a look on objective of this experiment. In this experiment, we have three objectives. The first one is to prepare the calibration curve of combustion versus conductivity. The second one, to study the batch sulfonification reaction of ethyl acetate and sodium hydroxide. And the last one, to study the effect of temperature of this reaction. Introduction. This is basically the basic diagram of batch reactor. So what is actually happening inside the reactor? The reactant and the catalyst are placed inside the reactor for a certain time given to produce a product. In this experiment, we have to make a few assumptions, which is uniform concentration and temperature of ideal gases. Batch reactor also have a few advantages compared to other reactor. The first one is produce a better yield compared to continuous reaction. The second one is produce high selectivity product, and the last one, you can operate different operation without breaking the containment.
Batch reactors are the simplest reactors used in the chemical industry. The reactants are placed into the reactor and then allowed to react, and products form inside the reactor. The products and unreacted reactants are then removed and the process is repeated. Batch reactors contain ports for injecting reactants and removing products, and can be outfitted with a heat exchanger or a stirring system. These are generally of constant volume. Some are designed to maintain a constant pressure by varying the reactor volume.
Next slide. Theory. So this is basically the equation that we will use for this experiment. The equation 1 is basically the general mole balance for all reactants. But since batch reactor there is no flow in and flow out, so we will conclude to equation 2. And lastly, equation 1 is the equation in terms of combustion. This is the equation that we will use for this experiment. That's all for me. Thank you.
Good evening everyone, I'm Sarvish. I'll be talking about the methodology of the whole process. Okay, first moving on onto the experiment, which consists of the equipment of this experiment, which consists of 5 things. First is the reactor. Reactor basically it consists of the glass vessel, a vacuum which has a cooling cord, a heater, and temperature sensor, and the stirrer. This is where the reaction occurs. Next would be the feed inlet system. This place where the feed would actually enter. There's 2 feed inlet system, where for the acetyl acetate and sodium hydroxide. Next would be the water bath. Water bath basically it's a 25-liter tank which consists of water which would be heated later on. Next would be the waste or the product tank. Here it's a stainless steel tank which used for collecting waste or the product. Lastly, a control panel. It's actually basically electrical components which is connected to the computer where the data of the whole process is taken. Next would be the schematic diagram, where it's shown that there's 2 feed inlet which for the acetic acetate and the sodium hydroxide. Next, that would be the reactor, which batch reactor where the whole process occurs. Next would be the water bath which heats, and also the waste tank and the product tank. Next on the procedure. Basically, this experiment consists of two parts. First would be the batch saponification or the batch reactor of the acetate and the sodium hydroxide, and next would be the varying in the temperature. The process occurs at first, and the conductivity would be calculated from the in every 1 minute interval for the first part, where a calibration curve for the conversion versus conductivity would be prepared. Next, the concentration and the conversion profile for the reaction between ethyl acetate and the sodium hydroxide is obtained. And for the second part, which mostly of the same, just by the changing of temperature, which consists of 50 degrees Celsius and 60 degrees Celsius. With this, the effect of temperature on batch saponification reaction of ethyl acetate and sodium hydroxide is studied. Next would be moving on to the results part. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Shauki and I am going to talk about the result. Basically, the result we divided into two parts. Part 1 is to determine the reaction rate constant K from the plot of X over CA0 1 minus X versus time. And we basically having two temperatures. The first one is at 30 degrees. From the data at 30 degrees, we calculated the X over CA0 1 minus X and we plot it versus time, and we obtain the plot as something like this. From the plot, we obtain the line of best fit and the equation of straight line y equals to 0.2039x minus 0.3834, and we know that the gradient of the straight line corresponds to the value of K. Therefore, the value of K we obtain as 0.2039 meter cube per mole minute, and the standard deviation of this plot is 1.38 and the standard error is at 0.295. Next. At 40 degrees, we also perform the same calculation, and from that we obtain the value of K at 0.4740 meter cube per mole per minute, and the standard deviation of 2.62 and the standard error of 0.61. Next. Then we calibrate the conductivity versus conversion, and we obtain that the conductivity of higher temperature lower than that of the lower temperature. Next, part 2 is to determine the activation energy from the plot of ln K versus 1 over T. And in this plot, we use the Arrhenius equation. By taking the natural logarithm of the Arrhenius equation, we obtain the straight line equation y equals to mx plus c, which is ln K equals to negative e over r 1 over t plus ln A. From the plot, we obtain the equation of straight line y equals to negative 8008.4x plus 24.827, and we equate the slope of the straight line into the equation negative e over r, and solving for two values of r, we obtain the activation energy R 666.58 kilojoule per mole or 15.91 kilocalories per mole. That's all from my part.
My name is Nurzatul Iqmal binti Muhammad Nur. Now I will proceed this presentation with discussion part. First of all, I would like to thank all my group members that I explained just now. So moving on, I had divided my part into 4 parts, which are the rate constant K, conductivity, activation energy, and saponification process. Let's proceed with rate constant K. Theoretically, as the temperature increases, the rate constant will also increase. This theory had been proved by our result just now. As you can see, the rate constant constant at 40 degrees Celsius is higher than the rate constant at 30 degrees Celsius. This is due to the kinetic energy which increases as the temperature increases. This affecting the frequency of collision and frequency of effective collision. Therefore, at high temperature, it will be easier to break down the molecule of the reactant to form product. So, as the temperature increases, the rate of reaction increases and also the rate constant. We have to ensure the forward direction reaction, otherwise it will affect the value of rate constant. So we have to regulate the temperature that comes into the system and going out of the system. Then let's proceed with the activation energy. Okay, activation energy is the minimum amount of energy required to convert reactant into product. Therefore, we need higher energy to overcome the activation energy. And for that, we need higher temperature to overcome the activation energy. Moving on is about the conductivity. Conductivity is inversely proportional to conversion. This is because sodium hydroxide is the salt that will ionize its ion throughout the reaction. So throughout the reaction, the concentration of sodium hydroxide will decrease, so the conductivity will also decrease. Next is the saponification process. In this experiment, saponification does not occur. Saponification process is a process to form soap. This is due to the too small concentration of sodium hydroxide as well as ethyl acetate. Even if the soap was formed, it will dissolve in the solution quickly. That's all for my part. Now I will pass the floor to Pam.
Hi, I am Pam Zhen Hong. So now I will proceed with the errors and modification. I will talk about the errors in this experiment and I will give some recommendation on how to get rid of it. So, the first error in this experiment is a human error, which is miscalculation. The data we collected in this experiment consists of a lot of numerical values. So this might increase the probability for us in miscalculation, because we might key in a wrong value during the calculation and this will give us a wrong result. So to avoid it, we must make sure that all the value key-ins are correct and double check each calculation. So next, the second errors we face is inaccurate concentration of the solution. The concentration of sodium hydroxide and ethyl acetate is not well prepared because it requires a large volume of solution, and this will affect the concentration as when we prepare it, we use a big measuring apparatus. So to avoid this, we can use a smaller volume measuring cylinder to prepare a smaller volume scale so that it is more accurate and the concentration will not be weighted too far from the desired value. So the third one and the last one is the heat transfer in the reactor. We have a cooling system in the reactor, but the rate of heat produced and the rate of heat taken out from the reactor might not be equilibrium. If it is not equilibrium, it might lead to a reverse reaction, and reverse reaction, like mentioned previously, it will affect our rate constant value. So that we must make sure that the temperature is maintained there so that it is a forward reaction. So next I will proceed with our conclusion. As we see from the result, we can conclude that as the temperature increases, the rate of reaction as well as the rate constant value will increase. And also from the calibration curve, we can see that the conductivity is decreasing as the conversion decrease. So we can conclude that all of the objective of this experiment is fulfilled. Yes. That's all from our group. Thank you very much.